how it's gone from blues to rap in only one generation. It's astounding to me. And today we're going to talk about what part of the cultural meltdown affects you the most. I think it's an important question. I mean, we know about borders, we know about language, but I've never talked about culture to any extent. And I'm going to focus on culture today and ask you again, what part of the cultural meltdown forced upon us by the hippie left offends you the most in your daily life? What would you like to see done? What does it to you? What do you hate the most? Now, I'm going to start with an obvious subject that's in everyone's mind because they forced it down our throat. We all know about the bathroom issue. You think this came out of compassion? You are mistaken. It did not come out of compassion. Now it's moved on to when asked about their sex, some are going with option X. Big article in today's USA Throwaway by William Cummings. And it's written like this: America has slowly begun to acknowledge that for many people, gender, first wrong word, is much more complicated than simply being a man or a woman. And a growing number of Americans are seeking recognition of a third gender, neither exclusively male or female, under the label non-binary. Okay, so there's a show on Showtime called Billions. Many of you don't know what it is. It's a small show. I've enjoyed it. And one of the characters is played by an actor, Asia K. Dillon, who I think is excellent, by the way. And I really enjoyed her a lot. So she opens up by saying, in this hedge fund when she's hired, because she's particularly smart, of course, she couldn't be stupid. As you well know, the next minority in line has to be smarter than everybody else. It's always that way. They're superior in every way. The superior virtue of the oppressed, as you understand, is the watchword of the left. So the line they wrote for her is, "Hello, I'm Taylor. My pronouns are they, theirs, and them." That's what the character says when she is introduced to one of the show's two protagonists. And that scene introduced the concept of so-called non-binary people and non-gender specific pronouns to many viewers, meaning Showtime, HBO, never misses an opportunity to rub your nose in the fact that you're an out-of-town boob. Now, does this offend you? I don't care whether it offends you. That's not the issue, not this particular show. The real issue here is the focus on culture today. What part of the cultural meltdown offends you the most? I'll give you some ideas. Is it the open pornography that is everywhere? Is it the legalization of marijuana being sold as a medical, let us say, cure, when in fact you know most people are smoking it in these clinics to get high? Is it the profanity coming out of the mouth of that slime ball on HBO and the others like him who have no sense of humor, and they confuse using dirty words with being humorous because they have no humor and no brains? Is it the violence displayed in movies by Katzenberg, Hatzenberg, and Matzenberg while funding peaceful causes? Is it the attack on Christianity, the constant attack on Christianity in every sphere of our lives? See what I'm saying? So while you're thinking about that, let's go to a few calls, a few of the topics that I'm going to talk about. And you're invited to call on which one offends you the most or such at 855-407-282. I know about the health care. I'm so not interested. The others talk about health care because it's easy. I talk about health because it's hard. And you have to take chances and you have to know what you're talking about. Today I'm going to talk about neither of those. So let's go to the cultural issue and the non-binary. Are you non-binary? Maybe I have non-binary issues. Listeners, I just got the ratings. They're through the roof again. And what percentage of my millions of listeners are non-binary? What if there's like a high percentage? It could explain an awful lot. Why do we have to hear about your sexual preference on a daily basis? What is the difference what your gender identity is, your sexual identity? Why do we care? Why do we have to be involved in your life and the further classifications of people? That's what most of us are asking. Most people are saying, you know what, do what you want to do. Leave me alone. Stop forcing it down my throat. Leave me alone already with your sexual issues. Now, I want to ask you something. Why do you think all these things are happening? Why do you think all of a sudden we've been jammed down our throats with these issues of sexual identity? And it's not all of a sudden. You know when it started. It started with the gay issue. Then it went on to, transgender, LGBT. I have to remember my acronyms: lesbian, gay, bisexual. It went on to gay. Then we talked about transsexual or transgender. Now we're on to binary. See, there's always a new iteration of the same situation in order to create the procrastination amongst our nation. That's the whole story in a nutshell. But what's the genesis of all of this? A listener wrote me this. The listener said, I don't know. But what I'm curious about is which gender characteristics make someone one gender or the other, or something in between, or outside of, well, I don't know. The listener said after taking around 100 units of mainly sociology, psychology, anthropology, and philosophy courses between 03 and 16, one theme that frequently reappeared and stayed consistent throughout that 13-year time span, contrary to even our all-powerful media rhetoric to the contrary, was this. It was that gender is a social construct, that we learn which mannerisms, choices in material objects, like toys and clothing, emotionality, physicality, hairstyles, hobbies, are acceptable for us based on our sex, and those behavior-related things make up our gender, of which there are two, since there are two sexes. Now, there are some variations other than XX and XY and ambiguity with genitalia. But as far as I'm aware, the listener writes, the gender confusion is not limited to those with irregularities in sex chromosomes or sex organs. So this gender confusion or ambiguity doesn't correlate with sex ambiguity. And then the listener goes on. What's the fuss about? Men don't want to be emotionally inexpressive, but what? They want to twirl around in dresses and giggle instead? Robert, what do you think of that one? Robert got a laugh out of that. And women don't want to twirl around in dresses, but want to wear men's suits and be stoic? If so, why does anyone care? Why is this a constant topic of conversation all the way into the political arena? Who decided that gender is no longer a social construct, but now a biological trait? And if it's, well, you get the picture. This is the story that I want to talk about, along with the other cultural stories that are related to it. I talk about borders, language, and culture. And I think there's no relationship between what I'm about to play for you and what I just said, but it'll lighten the day up to listen to Nancy Pelosi to show you that not only do we have a problem with cultural attitudes in America and cultural confusion, now we're going to go from that back to focusing on culture. What part of the cultural meltdown offends you the most in plain English? How we've gone from blues to rap in one generation. If you listen to music, and I listen to music constantly, as you know, I love music, I play music, and I know a little bit about music. I'm certainly not a musicologist, nor did I study it, but after many, many years of listening, you get to know a few things. And whether it is the origin of the great music called jazz in America, in the African-American community, or the origin of blues music in America from the African-American community, to the degeneration of music in America in all communities, you have to ask yourself, why is this happening? Now, I happen to have the answer to that question. At least I think I can give you an answer that has relevance to you. People are asking me, well, first of all, yeah, there is a cultural meltdown. We know it started in the 60s with the hippie revolution, but look where it's going now, and if it's not stopped, where is this going to end up? Well, I know where it ends up. Just look at ancient Rome. Do I have to tell you what Caligula did with young boys after he was through having his pleasure with them, if you want to get really graphic? This is what happens unless a culture is saved by the sane people. Now, that's one point I wanted to make, but there are others. Where does this go? It goes to the worst possible imaginings in your mind. Unless there is a reversion to the basic tenets of Christianity, the morality and the ethics of Christianity, this country is doomed, in plain English. That explains and brings me right back to my answer of who's doing it. That is why low-life comedians on HBO who hate everybody, include themselves, who are very well-known drug users, almost all of them are well-known and exploit the fact that they love drugs. Every one of them hates Christianity and hates religion, with the exception of Islam. They dare not say one word about what's going on with the invasion of Muslims into Europe. Not one word, but I'll tell you a little bit about Sweden in a moment. You're not going to believe what happened to that country because of their tolerance and their ultra-liberalism. So what I'm saying to you is there's a reason for this cultural meltdown. The radical left, which really is the left, there is no radical in the left. It's all left. All leftists are radical by nature. All leftists want to destroy the social order. All leftists want to bring it all down, man. All leftists believe in blowing up society in order to rebuild it in their own image. So what these cultural Marxists are doing by debasing our minds with drugs, sex, and rock and roll, if you want to put it in simplistic terms, is destroying our moral fiber so they can replace it with their immoral constructs. That's a complete and total introduction. I can go on, and I will for another few hours. This is the Savage Nation. I'll be right back.
Join the Savage Nation.
A new article just came out. Trump wants a 5-year welfare ban for new immigrants. Now, look, I'm not going to take credit for that, but it's been in 2 of my books. It's been in Government Zero and Trump's War. If you want to see where Trump's going to be going on so many issues, it's in my book, because that's the architectural plan of this revolution. They're all reading it. I know it for a fact. They're taking their head. They're cherry-picking my book. This is great. The White House had originally thought about doing this as an executive order, but now says they want to go to Congress. How many of the cowards in Congress are going to vote for this? It's a good idea, because the Center for Immigrant Studies shows that 51% of households headed by an immigrant are using some form of public assistance, compared to only 30% among non-immigrant families. So they're bleeding us dry, as we know. They're bleeding us dry. We, the people, know it. We're paying the bill, not the congressmen, not the elites on HBO who tell you, oh, that's so racist. That's so profiling. No, it's so sane. That's what it is. WABC, Don, what part of the cultural meltdown offends you the most? Don on WABC Line 2, fire away.
Yeah, well, here in New York on Long Island, my wife and daughter are educators in predominantly black areas. And the kids are being taught that you could only be a racist if you're white.
Okay, that's racism of the worst kind.
Yeah.
This is now indoctrination that is regularly taught in the schools in Nassau County?
Well, Suffolk, that I know of. My wife and daughter are out here on the island.
Well, who took over the school system there? Who's the superintendent of schools? They have to be sued. A coalition of parents has to get together and sue the school superintendent for damaging the psyche of your children. How's that? For being overtly racist against white people. That would stop it, nothing else. And I'll tell you something else, Don. If you get together 5 to 10 people, I will raise the money for that lawsuit. How's that?
Oh, that'd be wonderful.
I will raise the money as I've done for cops and soldiers. I've had enough of this. I'm going to become an activist again. I've told you I'm not an activist. I'm only a talk show host. I just changed my mind. I've had enough of this. We're going to raise money. We're going to sue school districts and school superintendents who are telling white kids that they're racist because of their race. This is going to stop. And then we're going to sue to have them thrown out. We're going to sue to fire them. We'll sue them personally for damaging the self-esteem of our children. Do you hear what I'm saying to you? I can guarantee you these cowards will crawl under the rock they came out of.
Join the Savage Nation.
I don't know, it reminds me of San Francisco in the 70s, which I actually hated. But looking back, it seemed good. Isn't it crazy how you look back and think things were great when they were terrible? You're looking back, but it was a horrible time. It was awful what affirmative action was doing to me. But looking back, it seemed like fun, but it wasn't. It was terrible. Play it again just for the heck of it. I mean, I remember driving on California Street, coming up and down those hills. It's beautiful. You can do it to this day. You avert the bums, the potholes, the beggars on every corner. You think you're in Calcutta. It's like driving in Calcutta in San Francisco, but the roads are worse. That's the only difference between this city and Calcutta. Right, you have the same number of beggars, but the roads are better in Calcutta. That's because all the money gets sent home because of the wonderful folks in Silicon Valley who bring them in. They send the money on them, therefore they don't have to pay you more than $6 an hour. So we're talking about culture. What part of the cultural meltdown offends you the most? And I've shown you how we've gone from JFK to Nancy Pelosi in one generation. And why do you think the third gender, the binary situation, so-called, is being forced down our throats now? They saturated us first with gay. That goes back to the 50s. It didn't start in the 60s. Because I remember even in the 50s, now that I think about it, the first sexually, I'm trying to use the right word here without offending anybody, Christine Jorgensen was the first visual or well-known public male to have his Schmendrick removed by surgery and to become a woman. And it became huge news. Every paper I grew up was reading. Christine Jorgensen this. You know, Christine Jorgensen was the Caitlyn Jenner of her time. Caitlyn Jenner's a joke altogether because that's not a real, that's like this guy's an attention junkie. If he had to become a dog to stay in the news, in my opinion. I have in my hand a picture of me in the 9th grade, Parsons Junior High School, Queens, New York. I could see myself. I'm the kid in the front between the tall, skinny Ichabod Crane math teacher and the principal who had a big head like a macrocephalic. I remember him to this day. And I was in the front row because I was not tall. I was one of the shorter kids. I'm looking at all the kids in that classroom. Look how innocent I look. I'm thinking, what would I be today if Katzenberg, Hatzenberg, Matzenberg, and Ratzenberg had not taken over the movie industry? What if there was still imagery about American heroes? What if instead of seeing Brokeback Mountain, I would still see cowboys who were really cowboys, instead of even perverting the image of the cowboy? What if instead of debasing the American soldier, they elevated the American soldier? As in my day, I'd go to the movies. I'd come out of the movies just so inspired. I love being an American. Like Audie Murphy. Remember the movies of Audie Murphy? A great American hero. They didn't show the My Lai massacre. They showed Audie Murphy. And I'm sure in World War II, there are plenty of massacres on both sides. But the newspapers didn't put down our troops to make them look like mass killers. Wonder where that kid wound up. Where is he? Interesting kid. That one was going to go to medical school. I remember him. He dropped out. I heard years later, he had a nervous breakdown. It was too hard. That one started to go to law school. He became a mass murderer, right? He made a decision that he had more. That one wanted to be an accountant, the one who looks like Howdy Doody in the top row. I'm looking at the junior. And he went to work for Bernie Madoff, right? What about those girls? They were weird looking. Girls don't look the same as they do in those days. That's the odd part. They look like ordinary, girls, 13 years old. Girls today, it's hard to tell how old they are. They walk with their mothers. You don't know who it's the mother, who's the daughter. The mother's trying to keep up with the 13-year-old daughter. She wants to be her best friend. Women, can I give you a hint? Your daughter doesn't need a best friend. She needs a mother. That requires work. And that requires thought. That requires discipline. Something I know that most mothers don't have because they were raised by mothers who didn't have any. That's all. I'm unloading. And so, therefore, I turn it to you again, my friends. This whole binary thing. Binary, schminary, hinary. You look, there were always people like that who, let us say, were sex ambivalent. Let's put it to you that way. It's not an unusual thing. If you lived in a big city, as I did as a youth, now I don't. I live in the boonies. San Francisco is not really a big city. It's San Francisco is an out-of-town provincial town that poses as a big city. London's a big city. New York is a big city. Chicago's a big city. L.A. is a big city. San Francisco is a quaint city. Think of the trolley cars and Nancy Pelosi. Think of octogenarian politicians who confuse one president with another and then say that they're master legislators, even though they lose one election after another. That's the city I live in. Or bathrooms. You don't know which bathroom to go in. I don't even look anymore. The cleanest bathrooms, by the way, are the changing rooms. But you're not allowed to go in them, right? That's only for mothers, for changing. I don't know what they are anymore. There's like every bathroom in San Francisco. There's so many bathrooms, you need a map. If I'm in a mall, I have to go to the bathroom as a man. I have to look. I don't know which one to go into. M, MF, F, FM. A changing room. You don't know which one to go, and you're afraid you're going to be arrested just to go do a normal thing in this city. Do you want to talk about this topic? If not, why are they shoving it down our throats? The cultural disintegration I'm talking about. To me, the worst of it all is not pornography. It's the violence that Katzenberg, Hatzenberg, Matzenberg, and Ratzenberg, the peaceniks, put down our throats every day. And I saw it start in the 80s. It's not like the first that there were guns in the movies. We understand guns sell. In the 80s, every movie poster showed a girl actress or a girl or boy actor. It was such an ugly posturing. They always had their hips out. Remember the pose? It was always there. And there was always a pistol in their hand with a leather jacket. They were all tough guys and murderers. That led to the violence in the inner cities, where every kid wanted a gun to look like a movie star. Thank you, Harvey. I love the guy who produces the most violent movies in the history of America, Harvey Weinstein. is the most anti-gun man in the world. He wants to do a movie against the Second Amendment and the NRA. Don't you love it? Why are they such hypocrites? Is it guilt, stupidity, insanity, or too much success for too little talent? I don't know the answer. Someone writes this. Savage, don't all the things you're mentioning that are being shoved down our throats target our sense of personal identity? It's like emotional abuse. When you look at the way it seems to be causing widespread insecurity regarding sense of self and self-worth, sense of safety, and trust in other people and the world in general, common impairments in victims of abuse. Like the message is that we should question our sex and gender, like are we men and women, or have we been wrong all our lives? Our ethnicity and nationality, such as are we or are they racists because they want borders, immigration control, and immigrant assimilation? Our morals are under attack. Are they repressed or hateful for cringing at pornography and violence, or because they feel confused by same-sex marriages and families? And then the emailer writes, emotional abuse leads to insecurity and makes the abused easier to control. Now, that's the rub. There it is, the answer. That is exactly how the left is operating. See, there's very little real philosophy being taught in the universities today. It's antiquated in many ways. Yes, you can still read philosophy that was written in the 19th century, and maybe the 18th century, and maybe before that, when philosophy was still a fine art. But current philosophy is nothing but propaganda. The only philosophy that's left is on my show. I'm actually the philosopher of the airwaves. If I were to say the best part of my show is the philosophy of the show, whether they were focusing on culture, what part of the cultural meltdown offends you the most, and we're talking about all of the cultural assaults upon our senses, and how although it looks as though it's individualistic and that it's just fun and games, it is not. It's part of a plan to destroy America from within. Remember that the communist movement, yes, I'll say it like it is, I've studied it in great detail since I'm 18 years old, had a full-scale attack upon the, quote, bourgeois family. And remember, the attack on the family is the key to breaking the society in pieces. And boy, have they come a long way, baby. They have done such a great job on the family. There's almost nothing left for them to do but keep up the good work that they've been doing. Thank you, Katzenberg, Hatzenberg, Matzenberg, Ratzenberg, and HBO. You've done a great job in destroying America from within. And so that's what we're talking about. I mean, are you non-binary? How does this affect your everyday life? Why is it so important for the rest of us to hear about your sexual orientation? To me, it's like digestion. I don't talk about, well, actually, I do talk about my digestion now that I think about it. So maybe we should talk about sexuality a little bit. But why is it so important to talk about it all the time? Why is that the most important thing on earth? Is it the most important thing on earth? You mean the threats to this country by North Korea right now, a nuclear power? The threats to our survival by the maniacs in the press who are trying to start a war with Russia? That's not a bigger problem than what you do to get your rocks off? You mean the threats to this nation by the Muslim invasion? Excuse me, the Islamist invasion is not a problem for you? And by the way, speaking of that, when is the last time you heard CAIR, the Council on American Islamic whatever it is, apologize for the latest murder or attack? Like when? I don't know. I haven't seen any. Did we lose the show again, Robert, or we're still on the air? Because I'm running to the next studio during the break. It's the third time we've broken down, which means that, well, at least we ran a test and found that it's not the Telos equipment. It's AT&T. Thank you, AT&T. You've done a great job.
Join the Savage Nation. Call
to Beale Street. So today we're talking about the cultural meltdown in America. We know when it started, more or less. It really didn't start with the hippie 60s. I would say it really started with post-World War II, going back to some movies such as Rebel Without a Cause, if you want to like put your finger around a time period, 55, 56. James Dean as anti-hero was one of the early, imagery of the punky kid who kind of doesn't fit in, hates his family, that kind of thing, on a minor scale. Then we went on to, let us say, later 50s, Lenny Bruce, who I admired, but he certainly was part of the cultural meltdown, even though I loved him. What did I know about cultural meltdown? I thought he was funny. So that's how it starts. It's like, oh, yeah, that's funny. But you got to understand that what are you laughing at is what you're laughing at is yourself, your mores, your nation, your family, your church, and yourself. You're laughing at your own survival, in other words, in plain English. So there's a war going on in this country, and there has been for a long while, and enough is enough. We elected Donald Trump. We have a mandate, take our culture back, period, end of story. That's really what it comes down to. So what am I calling for? Nothing. I am not calling for anything. I am not a culture warrior. I am only a commentator and an observer, by the way. You want to know what I think should be done? I would rather not tell you because I enjoy my career in radio very much. So I've asked you today about these questions. By the way, I'm in a new studio. During the break, while you were enjoying yourself, having a sandwich, I had a racing heart tachycardia. I had a race from one studio to another because of a crash on the phone lines. In other words, it was not the Telos equipment, which was replaced this morning, because we thought AT&T had said that they did a trouble call and there was nothing. Turns out it is the lines. Then as I'm racing up here, I see a trucks on the road, which has, men at work. So it means they're playing with the lines while I'm on there. They can knock me off again today here. Anyway, there we are. L.A. paving way for Obama Boulevard. Oh, that's great. I can't wait to never drive on that one. Which one are they changing? Are you kidding me? Wait, which one are they going to change? Santa Monica Boulevard? Which one are they changing it? Soon add Obama Boulevard to them. Where would it be, though? Where are they putting it in L.A.? Obama? Where would it be? Between Jefferson... They want to rename it 3-4 mile segment of Rodeo Road between Jefferson Boulevard and Arlington Avenue? Are they crazy? Of Rodeo Road? I don't even know where that is. It's not Rodeo Drive. Rancho Cienega Park? Oh, I don't want to read this anymore. There's only one road that should be named after Obama, and that's a road that leads to nowhere. It's that simple. Okay, so now let's get back to today. Why is it that we're being assaulted with the sexuality business? It's bad enough that we have to hear about it, but that our children are being brainwashed about it at the same time wherever you go. So what part of the cultural meltdown affects you the most? Is it the open pornography? Should pornography be made illegal again? Is it the legalization of marijuana under the guise of medical marijuana, and we all know it's to get high? Is it the constant profanity on the airwaves and in movies? Is it the violence displayed by Katzenberg, and Matzenberg? Is it the false images of sexuality portrayed by the advertising gurus? Is it the attack on Christianity or the family? It's all of those things. What do you think it is? That's all. Now, I don't know whether this can be turned around. I actually don't know if a Chernobyl-like meltdown of a society can ever be changed. I really don't know. Certain things could be changed. We can start at the bottom. Let's talk about curing the problem. Okay, let's start at the bottom, the basic stuff that we could control, and see where that leads. New York was a cesspool after the Democrats ran it into the ground. Then along came Rudolph Giuliani, Republican, and he started with the squeegee men. The squeegee men were bums who, when you're at a traffic light, would take a greasy, dirty rag that had recently been used for cleaning a cesspool, and they'd rub it on your windshield and beg for money. And you knew if you didn't give money, they'd smear the whole car. People were going crazy in New York City. I was living here at that time. Giuliani said we're going to start with lifestyle issues like bums. So he cleaned it up. He made it illegal for squeegee men to operate on corners. And then slowly but surely they worked their way up to the crime of the streets. And the city became safer and cleaner. Now that we have a Sandinista in office in New York City, Mario de Blasio, a blowhard like you've never seen, a complete fraud like every leftist, Mario de Blasio has now turned New York City backwards in time, where crime, panhandlers, etc., pimps, prostitution, drugs, overt everything is in the streets again. This is what happens with liberalism. Tolerance is killing all of us. So you can start with the squeegee men. It's that simple. But I want to ask you, the people who are listening to the show, what you think. That's the whole point of the show. That is why it is called Talk Radio. And although it is 10 minutes after 1 bell here on the West Coast, it's already 10 minutes after 4 bells on the East Coast, which means nothing to you but a lot to me because the show's almost over, which I don't know how it happened. Henry on KSFO line 2, which part of the cultural meltdown bothers you the most?
Panhandling. Michael, no contest. I am panhandled on muni buses. My favorite offender is an elderly pork bun who receives Section 8 housing, Meals on Wheels, subsidized PG&E, and she's still out there begging people for $1.
But wait, how do you know she gets all these free things? Has she told you?
I live in her building.
Oh my God. Well, she's very ambitious. She's quite a capitalist when you think about it. I mean, she's adding to her income. What's wrong with that? Isn't that free market capitalism? I'm joking.
Yeah, my favorite energy vampire also is today's energy vampire is well dressed, has sports tattoos, has a cell phone, and rings my doorbell at midnight to panhandle. I mean, it's incessant. I hate the hippies for promoting this garbage.
What neighborhood do you live in, Henry?
North of the Panhandle, not far from the street, which is a sewer.
Oh, you live near Stanton Street?
No, I don't want to give my address, but
all right, but I know where you live. I know the Panhandle. It's in the Valley area beneath UC Med Center, for example, right? Would that be fair?
The kids call it Upper Haight. You know, I'm
Upper Haight.
Far from.
Look, hate is hate, no matter which way you call it, lower or upper, it's still hate.
That's right.
No matter how they peddle it, it's still hate. How do we go? This is a great line, isn't it? Here's a savagism. How do we go from hate Ashbury to hate everything?
Well, 50 years of liberalism has created a situation which the philosopher...
But you sound like a guy who could be confused with the San Francisco liberal. By listening to you, I don't think you have too many friends in your neighborhood, do you?
Not anymore.
What, because you started expressing yourself and you listened to this show?
Well, very carefully. I've been listening to you for quite a while now.
But you don't tell anybody. Like when you go to your secret meetings with the secret handshakes, you don't tell them you listen to the Savage Nation. Look, I got to tell you, Henry, that I happen to know for a fact most of the Democrat leadership in San Francisco listens to this show almost every day. I was told that point blank. They listen to it because they want to know what sanity is left in this country. They don't know where to turn because they all feed each other the same rubbish. They know they're lying to each other. They know they have to say it, so they think they do. They don't even know what's right anymore. So they listen to the show to hear how the average person still thinks.
It's a redeeming.
All right. And by the way, yesterday I mentioned that I'm relaunching Trump's War because it's more important than ever. And I'll bet you didn't buy one, right?
Correct.
Okay. I'm not punishing you. I'm sending you a free copy. You know how many people I meet lately who say, Michael, I'm a real fan of your show and I buy your books? It's amazing to me. But I thought about it. If more of you went and bought Trump's War now, do you realize what a revolution we could really cause? Because now that we have a mandate after the Georgia election, which we do, and I'll have to repeat this again until you finally hear me. The Democrats are saying it's not a big deal. It was a close race. That's not true. Every political race in America now, with the exception of California, which is a communistic one-party state, every other race in this country is razor thin in division. And the winner and the loser are very close. This was a huge difference of 4 points in Georgia in that special House race. That's an enormous victory for the Republican Party. And that is a mandate for Donald Trump. It's that simple. And that's a mandate for us to take back our culture. That's why I'm doing that show today. Now, what part of the culture wars do you think Trump is actually going to engage in? I wonder. I know he put out a speech today or a tweet, I don't know what it was, that he wants to limit welfare benefits to 5 years or something. Like immigrants can't get welfare for 5 years. That's right out of my book, which is great. But I have a chapter on culture, which I really will mention, Trump's culture wars. What is culture? That's not entertainment. Plato warned us. Trump's war for education. How academia is poisoning our culture, the bully pulpit. So this little book of philosophy, Trump's War, begins with page 91, what is culture? Let me read it. I don't know what I wrote. Let's see if it's any good. Well, no, what are my solutions? 1, kill Common Core at the state level. 2, restore civics classes at the local level. 3, abolish the Department of Education. 4, use the bully pulpit to preach Americanism. So that's what Trump should be doing. He should be doing more preaching about what America really is. And here's how I begin. No one's talking about the culture. There's almost no mention of cultural topics or issues. Have you heard anyone even in the Trump administration talk about pornography or the drug epidemic? I haven't heard it. We heard about the drug epidemic during the campaign. That came up for a little while when he was in New Hampshire because they're suffering greatly from epidemic overuse of OxyContin due to the evil people in the oxy business, the drug manufacturers, some of whom should be in prison for life. You talk about the swamp. We know about the swamp of corruption in Washington. That's a given. How about the social chaos that we experienced after almost a decade of the swamp creature in the White House? We don't want the same radical political leadership that caters to pornographers, drug dealers, perverts, illegal immigrant felons, and foreign competitors. Nor do we want another administration that disdains church, family, fathers, mothers, children, and decency. It seems to me that in America, justice is not only blindfolded, she has been castigated altogether. It is a perverted masquerade where the rich are innocent even when proven guilty, and average Americans are guilty with no money to prove their innocence. Their rights are mocked and their values the brunt of filthy humor on HBO. When this kind of disease appears on Earth, nature usually follows with its opposite. When the world order collapses this way, what usually happens? What inevitably follows this kind of decadence? Simply this. At some point, anarchy and social decay are followed by tyranny and oppression, as they were in Weimar Germany. But unlike in Weimar, we pride ourselves that we have a good economy and delude ourselves it can't happen here. I can give you one example after another proving that it can happen here. I'll be right back.
Join the Savage Nation. Call